At 32, Marcus was making $140,000 a year. He had the apartment, the car, the vacations, the wardrobe. By every visible measure, he looked like a man building a great life. Then, one afternoon, his company restructured, and he was out. No severance. And within 6 weeks, he was borrowing money from his parents to cover rent. $140,000 a year, gone in 6 weeks. That story is not unusual. According to a survey, nearly 40% of people cannot cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. But here's the part that should unsettle you. A significant chunk of those people have high incomes. Income is not the problem. Something else is. And I want to show you exactly what that something else is. Because on the other end of that equation, there are people who earn less than Marcus and will never have that moment. They have built something quiet, durable, and nearly impossible to destroy. By the end of this video, you'll know the 7 habits that separate those two kinds of people. But first, I need to tell you why almost everything you've been taught about getting rich is pointed at the wrong target entirely. Here is the first thing those people do differently. They are almost completely invisible about money. No announcement when the raise comes through, no upgrade that their friends notice, no subtle flex at dinner. This is not modesty for its own sake. It is a strategic decision, and it is one of the most powerful financial moves a person can make. Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years studying actual millionaires, not influencers, not celebrities, real accumulation of wealth millionaires. Their finding, published in The Millionaire Next Door, was stark. The people with the highest net worth were almost universally the people whose neighbors had no idea they were wealthy. They drove used cars, they lived in modest houses, they wore nothing that announced itself. Because the moment your income becomes visible to your social circle, something insidious happens. Your spending recalibrates to match the image. The raise gets absorbed. The bonus disappears into a lifestyle that now requires that bonus just to maintain. Wealth silence kills lifestyle inflation before it starts. It keeps the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And that gap is the only place wealth is ever actually built. There's a version of investing that feels exciting. The hot stock tip, the crypto play, the friend who tripled his money last spring. And there is a version that feels almost embarrassingly dull. A low-cost index fund, automatic transfers, no touching it for decades. Extraordinary wealth builders almost universally choose the boring version. Not because they lack imagination, but because they understand one thing with total clarity. Compounding only works when you don't interrupt it. Take a 29-year-old nurse who puts $500 a month into a broad market index fund and does absolutely nothing else with it for 30 years. No timing the market, no switching strategies. Just $500 a month and patience. By the time she's 59 at a historical average return, she has crossed $680,000 on a nurse's salary with the most boring strategy imaginable. The people chasing exciting returns spend those same 30 years resetting their clock every time the market scares them. They are always starting over. The wealthy are always continuing. That difference, compounded, is everything. Most people account for their money carefully and their time almost not at all. The wealthy flip this. They are obsessive about where their hours go because they understand something that sounds simple but hits differently when you really absorb it. Your time has an hourly rate, and every task you do that falls below that rate is costing you money, not saving it. A guy I know runs a small landscaping business in Ohio. 3 years ago, he was doing his own bookkeeping, about 5 hours a week. He hired a part-time bookkeeper for $80 a week. He took those 5 hours and used them to bid on commercial contracts he'd been too busy to pursue. Within 4 months, one of those contracts was generating $3,200 a month. He spent $80 to make $3,200. But the way he tells it, he didn't spend $80. He bought 5 hours. What's the one task eating your hours every week that someone else could be doing? Drop it in the comments. I promise you're not the only one sitting on that answer. This one is uncomfortable to say out loud, but it needs to be said. The people around you are shaping your financial life, whether you are aware of it or not. Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler spent years mapping how behaviors spread through social networks, and what they found applies directly to money. Spending habits, financial ambition, risk tolerance, all of it travels through relationships like a contagion. Your wallet is being influenced by your 5 closest people right now in ways you probably can't see. Extraordinary wealth builders edit their inner circle, not by cutting people off, but by being deliberate about proximity. The people they see most often are building things. The conversations at their table are about assets, ideas, long-term bets. The people they spend the least time with are the ones whose primary weekend activity is spending money to feel good temporarily. You don't need wealthy friends, you need builders. People obsessed with creating something. That energy is contagious too, and it is far cheaper than the alternative. Every dollar that passes through your hands makes a binary choice. It either becomes an asset or it becomes an expense. An asset generates future value. Money, equity, income, appreciation. An expense is gone. Most people's money is almost entirely in the expense column. Wealthy people have trained themselves to feel the pull toward the asset column almost reflexively. They call it different things, but the behavior looks the same. Before any significant purchase, there is a pause, a question. Could this money buy something that works for me instead? Not always yes, not perfectly, but consistently enough, over 10, 15, 20 years, that their balance sheet looks completely different from their peers who earned the same income and spent it on things that depreciate the moment they leave the store. A 36-year-old teacher putting $250 a month into dividend-paying assets instead of upgrading her phone every cycle will have built a passive income stream in 15 years that funds her phone upgrades. And a lot more. For the rest of her life. The asset addiction is quiet. It doesn't look like ambition from the outside, but it is the most reliable engine for building wealth that has ever existed. The market pays at the extremes. It always has. A person who is pretty good at 5 things earns a middle income. A person who is truly exceptional at one specific thing earns at the top of the distribution. And exceptional doesn't happen by accident or by passion alone. It happens through years of deliberate, focused practice in a lane narrow enough to own. Cal Newport wrote about this in So Good They Can't Ignore You. And the thesis is uncomfortable for people who've been told to follow their passion. Passion follows mastery, not the other way around. The people who love their work are almost always the people who became undeniably good at it first. Wealth followed the same path. They picked a lane, they went deep, they became irreplaceable, and irreplaceable gets paid accordingly. The question is not what you're passionate about. The question is what you are willing to be obsessively good at for the next decade, because that is the actual bet that pays. Now here is the thing that ties all 6 of these together. The habit that, without it, the other 6 eventually fall apart. Think about Marcus from the beginning of this video. He had income. He had ambition. He probably knew some of these habits, at least in theory. So, what went wrong? His time horizon was short. Every decision he made was optimized for how life looked this year, like the apartment, the car, the wardrobe. There was no 30-year plan. There was no plan that survived a single bad quarter at his company. The 7th habit is a longer time horizon than almost everyone else in the room. Not slightly longer. Radically longer. While most people are asking what their life looks like next year, extraordinary wealth builders are engineering what their life looks like in 15. While most people react to whatever happened in the market this week, these people are executing on a plan that was written before this year's crisis existed and will still be running after the next one. Morgan Housel captured it perfectly. The secret to building wealth is not finding the best investment or earning the most money. It is surviving long enough for compounding to do what compounding does. The 7th habit is simply this. They stay in the game no matter what longer than anyone else. That is why the index fund beats the trader. That is why the boring wins. That is why the person with the longer clock almost always ends up with the bigger number. Marcus's story ends fine, by the way. He rebuilt. Slower this time. He started tracking his time. He stopped announcing his income to his friends. He set up an automatic transfer he promised himself he would never touch. He is 2 years in and he already looks different. Not on the outside, but in the way he talks about money. Quieter, longer, less reactive. None of these 7 habits require a windfall. None of them require a perfect economy or a lucky break or connections you don't have. They require something that is simultaneously easier and harder than all of that. A consistent decision, made quietly, over a very long time. The gap between people who build extraordinary wealth and people who don't is not income. It is not intelligence. It is the clock they are playing on, and whether they are willing to stay at the table long enough to let it work. Start one of these habits this week. Not all 7. 1. The rest will follow. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe. One video a week on the habits, psychology, and quiet decisions behind real wealth. I'll see you in the next one.